Victor Wembanyama was the first pick in the 2023 NBA draft, and he came into the league with monumental expectations surrounding him as one of the most hyped prospects since LeBron James. Now, I'll be the first to admit that I had prayed that the Detroit Pistons would win the lottery draft that year and have the chance to draft what some people have said is a generational talent. Now, that being said, after one full year in the NBA and early into this second year, there's a lot of people that feel that he hasn't met these sky-high expectations. And that's what we're here to discuss today, is the reasons why he might not ever meet these sky-high expectations. Now, if he's not to meet these sky-high expectations, that doesn't mean necessarily that he's a bust. He could still be a Hall of Fame player. He could still have all-star seasons, all that kind of stuff. But when we're talking about generational talent, we're talking about people like Michael Jordan, LeBron James, Steph Curry, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Bill Russell, those type of players that are often considered in the greatest of all-time talks. Now, why do I think it'll be tough, or why he's unlikely to meet these expectations? Well, first, let's talk about what those expectations are. The media and the fans have put extreme pressure on him right from the very beginning. It's often hard to meet these type of expectations, and quite frankly, out of most of those ones that I mentioned right off the beginning, other than Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and LeBron James, none of those other players had those expectations right from the very beginning. Michael Jordan, who many people consider the greatest of all time, wasn't even the first player picked in that draft. He was the third player, and nobody thought that his game was going to actually translate and thought that he had the potential to be the best player of all time. Steph Curry was picked even later in the draft than Michael Jordan was, and I don't think anybody had the kind of expectations that he ended up providing in his NBA career. So when you talk about these kind of expectations that you're placing on a 19-year-old kid, it's tough right from the very beginning. Like I said, one of the things that has impressed me most about LeBron James, who I am not a fan of, is that he did come into the league with those expectations, and he was able to live up to those expectations and live up to the hype. Now, what are some of the things that are at issue with Victor Wembanyama that might cause him to not live up to this height? Well, let's start off with some of the physical limitations. He has a very slender frame. Now, at 7'4", with that relatively slim build, he's shown that he could struggle to handle some of the physicality of the NBA, especially over time. He could be vulnerable to injuries or wear and tear due to his frame, especially given the intense contact that he would face in the paint. There could be some durability concerns there. Tall players, especially with those unique body types, often experience chronic injuries. There is a history of NBA big men with high injury rates like Yao Ming, Kristaps Porzingis, or even Chet Holmgren, suggesting that he could face a similar struggle. Then there's the consistency and mental pressure. Being constantly compared to legends like LeBron or Shaq or Kevin Durant puts this immense pressure on him to deliver consistently, which can weigh on a young player and impact his mental game. The all-time great expectations might be more than anyone can reasonably fulfill. His game has shown flashes of brilliance, but it has also been marked by inconsistent performances. Developing the ability to be effective every night could take time, and some fans and analysts or commentators might lose patience. And then there is the offensive limitations. He does tend to have a reliance on jump shots. Despite his size at 7'4", he has an unusual play style that relies heavily on perimeter shooting, making him prone to streaky shooting nights. His three-point shooting, which was listed as promising, might need considerable work for NBA defenses. Just to start this year, shooting at a clip of 7 3-points a game, he's only shooting 21% from the three-point line, which is not very good at all if that's what your game is going to rely on. Even last year in his rookie season, he was in the low 30s percentile, which is not very good for somebody that's relying preliminary on those type of shots. So his focus on sometimes what can be considered difficult shots and less efficient scoring could limit his effectiveness if he doesn't become more selective. He'll need to balance perimeter play with interior dominance to maximize his scoring impact. As mentioned earlier, there is going to be an adaptation to NBA physicality. His slender frame can be a disadvantage in the post. He'll face stronger, more physical defenders, and if he can't develop a reliable way to score inside, he may have difficulty taking full advantage of his size. NBA defenses are fast, complex, and relentless, and if he struggles to adapt quickly, especially in understanding defensive schemes, it could take years before he's fully effective on both ends. One of the things that I've noticed is that teams this year have been putting smaller players on him to guard him on the outside, players that are 6'6", 6'7", and then putting their bigger player on another player and having him there as a rim protector. So if he's only shooting 21% from the three-point line, put a faster person on him to prevent him from driving past him, and then a big guy at the rim to protect, and he really becomes ineffective as a scorer. Players like Porzingis, or as Shaq has often compared him to, Bol, also entered the league with unconventional skill sets for their size, but they've struggled to reach their potential due to injuries and role adjustments as well. There's a chance that Wembanyama might follow a similar path, where uniqueness doesn't necessarily translate to consistent success. Even if he is a good player, meeting that once-in-a-generation standard requires extraordinary achievements and longevity. And if he doesn't start putting up MVP-caliber numbers or struggles with injuries, fans may view him as falling short or even consider him a bust. Now, there are other intangible factors like an adjustment period. Like I said, he is only 20 years old, and moving from European leagues to the NBA can require time to adapt to the different pace, culture, style. And the longer it takes him to adjust, the harder it may be for him to meet expectations quickly. And then there's going to be the media and fan scrutiny. Constant media scrutiny can wear down young players. And if he's overly criticized or put under a microscope, it could affect his confidence and growth. As I said, that doesn't mean he's going to be a bust, but living up to those lofty expectations right from the beginning could prove difficult, and that could have some type of mental aspect on his development. So what do you guys think? Do you think he is that generational talent that's going to one day be put in the same breaths of Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and LeBron James and Michael Jordan? Or do you think he's going to end up more like a Kristaps Porzingis or even a Bol? We'll see. Hey, keep listening to the channel. Keep sharing these videos and subscribe. And if you want to hear about more sports, don't forget that me and Jeff do a podcast weekly, In Between the Lines podcasts. Look for it on all your podcast type stations as well as on here on YouTube. Thanks, everybody.